Look, everybody, it's Lauren right here in this little. We can put a little heart around it. Um, so I was just saying to everybody, somebody was asking me what the heck this thing is behind me.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a natal chart. So like CoStar, which we don't really know her, but if you happen to use CoStar, when it writes it out for you, it feels like it's easier. I understand that, okay? But can I just say that this is just a snapshot of the sky, which is actually a ball, but then we just flatten it to make it look easier. That's all. But if you stay tuned, you're going to get to see how we read it, which is kind of fun. So this is this lovely lady's chart right here behind me. Um, so Lauren, as you all may know, is an astrologer, mostly here on TikTok, but all over the place. Lots of content. And as I was saying to you, Lauren, on text yesterday, we're opposite. At least our two main things are
Yes.
opposite. And I find that so interesting because we're both professional astrologers, but how we do things is so different,
Yeah.
which
And
makes sense.
I so love, like, because I make so much educational content, I always love seeing the charts of other educational creators because I'm like,
Yes.
what influences we all share. So I'm interested to see the breakdown today.
Yeah, because I feel like when you think of I'm a Capricorn Sag, so Capricorn Sun Sag Moon. So I'm very like work oriented, refinement, like getting initiated, but also experiencing things and then like reteaching them as an experience
Yeah.
versus you're able to like be very empathetic and understanding to people because of the Cancer Sun. And then you can write like the Dickens, right? Because you got
Yeah.
that Gemini. So it's so interesting. Like I could not do the writing that you do because I just don't have that. I don't have that Gemini goodness there. I have the
And
Sag
it's
goodness instead.
funny because I was actually showing my husband your content when I was explaining this to him, and I was like,
Yeah.
they always have best graphics in these like moving videos. I'm like, I don't have the patience for that. I literally
Well, see, but my background is in marketing. I have a degree in graphic design. So I
oh,
make all that stuff.
that's
That
awesome.
just happens to be my advantage
Yeah.
because that's what my degree happens to be in. Everything happens like that in some way, right? So how I like to start out normally is just to tell people how I look at astrology because we're all a little bit different, right? And so some of you who have heard this before, sorry if I'm going to bore you for a moment, but it's I like to start it out so everybody understands the whole picture, if that makes sense, before we get into the details. So, as astrology, as people call it, a pseudoscience, which is crap, but that's fine. That's beside the point. It's obviously one of the oldest sciences out there, and while it might not be an exact science, I mean, we're made of the same stuff as the stars are made of, right? So, if you think about it, if the moon affects the ocean and the sun affects the seasons on Earth, obviously we're going to be affected by what's going on in the sky as well. So, you can imagine the time that you were born, and we take a little snapshot of that. Let's see what was kind of injected into your personality, if you will. That's how I kind of look at it. So, just so everybody knows, there's four main parts that we're going to talk about. I don't have the aspects up here, but I'll explain that in a moment. Um, we have all of us have all 12 signs in our chart. This is the outer edge here. You can see all 12 of them. That's because there's 360 degrees, 12 signs, 30 degrees each. Now, this is Placidius Western style, which the majority of us practice, right? But there
It's
is other kinds as well.
popular for online calculators. So it uses
Yes,
results that way if you're just running your stuff on your own.
right, exactly. Some of the older styles, which are only about 700 years older, which is kind of interesting, like way back, but they're more exacting, and it was more for people like Aristotle and like people that could exactly locate things. And so Placidius took it to make it a little more general of like this area, this area, this area, if you will. So now we have the houses as well. You'll see here in the middle, there's 12 numbers. It starts right here, which I'll explain in the moment why, in a moment why. But there's all 12. Now, in Western style, they can change degrees from teens all the way up to like plus 60, I've seen. So we'll talk about it. You have some little ones and bigger ones, so we'll be able to discuss that a little bit. Then there's these little points, these little glyphs. Now there's thousands of them. We're just talking about a few right
Oh,
now,
when you
right?
start the asteroids, you are deep. You are in.
You're in there. There's satellites, there's dust clouds, there's all
There's
sorts of stuff.
stuff I ignore. I'm like, I don't see it. Like,
Yeah, it's like I don't. What are you talking? But in other words, when people are like, well, what if my house is empty? Well, it's never empty technically in the sense it has a ruler, but there's also thousands of points. We're just talking about a few, and these indicate different kinds of focus that they're bringing. Okay, so you have your attitude, where it's happening in the houses, and the focus aspects, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end. I'll pull up the other one that has our aspects on it. That's the relationships between your focus points and how they work. All right. Woo! All right, here we go. So everybody, I'm Deb. This is Lauren, and I'm about to read Lauren's chart. All right.
Let's
So
do
here
it.
we go. So everybody, your chart starts right here. If you're looking at one of these round ones, that's because that's where your ascendant is. The ascendant is the constellation that was on the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born. So that's why it's the point of origin for your chart. It changes every 2 hours. Again, 12 signs, 24 hours in a day, right? And a little interesting tidbit, the closer you're born to 6 a.m. during your sun sign season, the closer you'll be to that rising sign. Meaning right now around 6 a.m., you would be a Libra rising as well as a Libra sun.
That is such
So,
fun. I love that.
yeah. So Lauren here happens to be a Leo rising. Not to mention, even though Lauren's a Cancer sun, you're a super Leo. I call anybody who has 5 or more placements in one sign a super sign.
Yep.
So there's going to be a lot of Leo energy here. Leos, as we know, fire sign, but very romantic. They're into creativity and pleasure, love, adoration. Now, adoration is not about ego as much as we think it is, even though obviously Sun ruled Leo, right? Ego.
But I just want to be
But
told a job, you know?
yes, a good job. Like
Yeah.
they don't mind if it's like, oh, you're beautiful or something cool. Like tangible surface area things, fine, but not what they need in adoration. Adoration is you've noticed that they've put some sort of work into what they've done and you see it. That's what they
Yeah.
like.
Words about
Yeah. So that being said, Leo rising, it owns your or it rules your first house. Okay. Not only does whatever your rising sign rule your first house, it rules your entire chart. So Lauren is ruled by the sun. So her ego is kind of involved in everything that she does, and she is looking for adoration. She wants a little pat on the back every once in a while. Nothing wrong with that, right? So the first house is self. It's how you're perceived, not only to yourself at the beginning or in the beginning of all sorts of things, because as we know, this isn't linear necessarily. You can be in different parts of your life at different times, right? So just in general, when it comes to herself and her appearance to other people or how she wants other people to perceive her, it's with some adoration and very creative, if you will. Now, the other placements that are here and in the first house are Mars and Venus, which here in Queerstrology, we call those your top energy and your bottom energy. Um, because in historically speaking, be more driven or less driven and more into love and adoration than other people. Just depends, right? So, what it means having a Mars in Leo, it means that your top energy or what you want to be dominant over is your creativity. Also in charge of your ego, and also in charge of how you get your adoration, self adoration. You want to be in control with what you're getting adored for. You don't want anybody else messing with that.
yeah, it's like
Now, on
unsolicited comments. I'm like, that's not what I wanted you to look at. I think that's my son too, but I'm sure you'll
yeah,
get
absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that in there, but there's that like you just want to have control of that. You want to feel like you're in control of it because that's what Mars energy is like. They're your drive. That's that I want to be in charge of this part of my life. Now, interestingly, having your Venus in conjunction is is one of those aspects I was talking about. It's when two focus points are within 10 degrees of each other, they blend their energy. So it's interesting to have your top and bottom energy blended, but it just means that your bottom energy is what you need in order to just feel like you can surrender to somebody or to be vulnerable around them. So you need somebody who's extremely creative and also likes adoration. You don't mind giving them adoration. More than likely, it's because there's something unique about them. Okay. So you like something that's a little bit different than what you're doing because you want to get the adoration for your stuff. You don't mind giving adoration to other people for their stuff, just as long as it's different than yours. So it needs to
My
be kind of unique, if
yep,
you
and
will.
my double Aquarius, so sun and
Oh,
moon.
there you go.
Love a
That
weird.
exactly explains.
Yep,
The island of misfit toys.
you gotta love.
That's yeah. That makes total sense because you just want somebody to be really interesting, creative, social because you have a ton of social stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute too, but that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, folks, I'm going to talk about how you rule or which signs rule houses as we go around because I'm going to go around the whole chart. But to explain, it goes counterclockwise for the houses, right? So we're going to move this way as we go around. These lines, this is your ascendant, that's the first line of your chart. Going this way, each lead line for the houses, this is second, third, fourth, so on. Whichever, wherever that line ends, that's the ruler of that house. Even if it's one little tiny degree, it still works, okay? So for Lauren, for her second house, Virgo is the ruler. So when Virgo rules your second house, the second house is the house of value and richness. Now, interestingly, most of your houses are ruled by the same element, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily the same mode, which we're not going to get into house modes right now, okay, Lauren? So don't start. But that's more like you and I can talk about that later. But that's the same mode.
Exactly.
People are going to be like, I don't know what you're saying now. So Virgo ruling it. Virgo is more of the perfectionist. They're the bow tire of the earth signs. So earth signs are about structure, and this is natively ruled by Taurus. Now Taurus, because they are the workhorses they're the work hard, play hard, if you will. They are looking for richness and value. So if you have Virgo there, Virgo is going to try to organize it. They're going to try to make it and finish it. They're going to try to be like, how do I get to the end game of being rich? And that doesn't mean money necessarily. It's whatever that means to you. Richness can be all sorts of things. It's what you're going to find high value in. So you find very high value in people who are organized and have their shit together.
Yep.
Right? You're like, I like that. And you're going to look for that in things that you're going through and working through. You're going to want people that, because that's what you seek value in. If they happen to be fairly organized, you're like, oh, I love that. Let's try something.
I'm like, let me study you. Like, let me just figure out all your stuff. Like,
Exactly, because you're just going to take that to enrich yourself. The
yes.
more you learn, you just add it to your list of things to how to enrich Lauren, if you will. Now, interestingly, Libra happens to rule your third house, which is communication, right? This is kind of how we communicate, the parts of our lives where we communicate, and this is including like personal or externally, like all kinds of communication. Yours, ruled by Libra, indicates balance, but it also indicates intelligence and initiation. So, unlike Gemini, who natively rules this, who's a little more like on to the next thing, on to the next thing, Libra is a lot about the initiation and then maybe having other people help you communicate what you want from that. So you're like, what do you think about this idea? And then go. And then people go, and then you can kind of help them organize that and balance it out to be what you want it to be.
Yep.
So you have lots of intelligence, and you want to be very just and equal in how you're communicating. You don't want to communicate too hard on one side or the other. Not all the time, because you are a Cancer sun. Okay, we'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
Sometimes the emotions have to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
So then when we move here to the fourth house, we have Scorpio. Scorpio is ruling the fourth house. A couple of things about this, and we're going to touch a little bit more on it when we get around to the midhaven. But I will tell you that having a Scorpio, this means that the fourth house is your root, your home life. And Scorpios are very private, but they're also investigators. They have more structure than most of the water signs in the sense that they like to know when things are going wrong. And since they are about transformation and intensity, they can see when something is changing. They see the slightest change. And so in your home life, you like to you like to be a little more secretive about it's not like you don't like to talk about it. It's just you're not telling people. Yes, this is Lauren's birth chart, by the way. You're not telling people that like all the intimate details of your life. You're just kind of telling them what they need to know, what you think is fine for them to know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also indicates in your past life, because this isn't nodes necessarily, but this is your root. So the roots of where your energy came from. So you were fairly private and probably kept to yourself more. Versus when we get over here to Taurus, who also is kind of an introvert, they're about the work ethic and getting things out. Versus Scorpio's like, we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's fine. But we'll talk more about that in a second and what that means. That's an IC situation, though. Excuse me. Now, you do have a placement here. It happens to be one of the 3 generational planets. Generational planets take 7 or more years to run through a sign. So anybody who's within your same age range will have it in the same sign. The 3 are Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, and they won't necessarily be in the same house for everybody, but the same sign with people in that age range. Okay, so this happens to be the native ruler of Scorpio, Pluto. So Pluto is the planet of transformation. So your generation is this underground transformation, and yours is coming in from the roots. So like everybody who has Scorpio and Pluto, their job is to try to intensely transform the world in whatever their way happens to be. And you're on the team of the roots, like building a good foundation of understanding and honesty, right? Because Scorpios are all about what the truth and transparency is of the situation. So
Even
that's,
yep.
yeah, that's your job. You're like, no, we're going to find the truth before anything's going to be changing here.
Yep.
Now, as when it comes to your creativity, look who's ruling your 5th house. We have the Sagittarius, y'all, the know-it-all. And why do Sagittarians know it all? It's because we just do, okay? We're not going to talk about anything that we don't know about.
Exactly.
Therefore, we know everything
I'll go
because
about it. Exactly. Yes.
so when it comes to your creative,
Yes, you get it. I can't hear you.
how about now? Am I back? Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. My alarm kept going off and it must have been taking my sound out. So I fixed it now. All right. Thank you. Sorry. So Sagittarius, knowing it all, so to speak, but in your area of creativity and pleasure, you want experience. So when you're coming out and you're doing something creative, you're doing it based on experiences that you've had or your philosophy or your higher education on it. Like, you know what the hell you're saying when you come out and you're doing something creative or for pleasure for that matter. So, there might be some stuff we want to know there. I don't know, folks. We want some more videos on her Sagittarius feels in the 5th house because I'm sure it'll be interesting. But yeah, they rely really heavily on the experience of it. So when you're doing something creative, you want to make sure that you know what it's like. You don't want to just read about it, which your Gemini stuff likes to do. But in this case, when it comes to being creative, you want to actually experience it or talk to somebody who has actually also experienced it, right?
Yeah.
Not just read about it. So as we move, there's 2 placements here, but they're both in Capricorn. So it's the other 2 generational planets, which the first one here is Uranus, and the second one is Neptune. Uranus is about rebellion. They're the social planet. So what you want to rebel or what you might be rebelling about or using your powers for, because Capricorn is the cardinal earth sign, so structure. And so you're looking for some structure in how creative you are and how that's going to help your social atmospheres. Your creativeness can help change the world, so to speak. And on top of that, it's part of what you're dreaming of and what your intuition, because Neptune is intuition and dreams, In Capricorn, that's efficiency and effectiveness. So you're really good at when you do come up with whatever experience that you want to create and get out there, you can dream it up. You can make it be a little more rebellious than other people and actually have some punch behind it when you're creating it. So that's what that indicates to me. Now, Capricorn rules your sixth house. This is the house of routine. So
Yes.
you have no problem being on routine. I'm sure you were on point with time. I mean, you apologize for having to let your dogs out, and you were still on time.
Places, which is why I was like, crap.
But you
But
were
yeah,
still on time. I just usually come on early just to kind of like, hey, everybody, this is what's going
yeah,
on and whatever. And then I just invite you, and I'm kind of done with the intro whenever you come in. But you apologize even for that, even though you were on time.
guilty. Yep.
Because that's your routine. You're very keen on that. You want to be efficient in it, so you feel like if you've missed an opportunity to be efficient, you'll apologize like you did. um, and now what's interesting is that you have Capricorn's native, the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn here, but it's in Aquarius. Now Saturn's one of the social planets, and it is the planet of restriction, but also results. And where I think that it is in people's charts is where they need to be restricted a little bit in order to get the results they want.
Yep.
So having it in the unique and interesting alien, as we were talking about, Aquarius, means that your sense of routine can sometimes be a little different than other people's. It's not necessarily the traditional kind. You're efficient in it because Capricorn's ruling it, but you like to do unique and different ways. Sometimes you might take it a little too far and then end up not getting the results you want. So
Yeah.
that's why Saturn's there. And it's like, all right, that's cool. Can we just tone it down a little bit for this one so we can
Yep.
get the results you want? So
Yep.
that's
Sometimes,
um
to reinvent the wheel, and that's hard for
mhm.
me. Always
Yeah.
want.
You're like, it's gonna be
I'm like,
fine. It's gonna be interesting. It's not
it,
different enough.
it needs to be sexy. Yeah, exactly.
I just did it like the other video I did. Like that kind of feeling.
Yep.
Even though it's totally different, but yeah. um, so Aquarius actually rules your house of relationships. So you were saying earlier your partner is a double Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go figure. Long-term relationships, you like that kind of interaction. You want it to be unique, non-traditional in the sense. You don't want it to be just like cut and dry. Let's get married, have two kids in the house and the white picket. That's not your thing. And so you will look for that. And this is not just romantic relationships, all kinds of relationships, your family, your friends, work, all that. You want it to be unique and different. Again, this is where the island of misfit toys comes in, right? So you're kind of like in your relationships, you like to be with other unique individuals, not somebody who's just like you and who
Yeah.
wants to do traditional stuff. You like
Yep.
their uniqueness. Um, and then you have Pisces, which we all know Pisces is the oldest and wisest of the signs. And it's ruling your eighth house, which is the house of taboo, sex, rebirth, transformation, things like that. So, where I see Pisces in people's charts, now this is where people talk about things and they tend to go over other people's heads. Because wherever your Pisces placements is, you have intuition and dreams that get infused into that part of your life. So for Lauren, it happens to be like the area of the taboo and transformation. So like, astrology stuff, things like that. And so there's some intuitiveness and some dreaminess in there. And you can pull things that other people didn't even think about. And so part of your creativity and learning how to do that is how to make it up to here and out where people can understand it, right? Because
Trans-
sometimes you can be over their head.
yeah. Translating the swirling chaos of flowery
Yeah.
metaphors and all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're like, you want it to be interesting and unique and have these cool ideas in it. And your transformation is about intuition. So you're using your different forms of intuition in your dreams in order to transform who you are. So you're going to obviously put that into what's going out as well. Since we know you're a creator, content creator, it's going to come out to everybody else as well.
Yep.
I mean, that's a good placement for that, if you ask me.
I'm glad it's there and not other places in my chart. I think it might be harder if I had planets there. Like, I think I got
Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah, like me, who's mine's Leo. Leo rules my eighth house, and I have Jupiter in there.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
You know what it means. Come
Yeah.
on, folks. Expansion in the house of sex in Leo. Come on. Just saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, segs. I said segs, right? Okay. So we're on TikTok. I can't forget because they're so picky over here. Excuse me. So then we go to Aries, the youngest and impatient of the signs, the cardinal fire sign, if you will. And this rules your ninth house. This is Sag's house, right? So Sag usually is about adventure and experience, which this is what this house represents, not to mention higher education, philosophy, spirituality, right? Aries is quick. They want to get to it. They want to try all the things really fast and see what works. So in this case, you're like the first person. Somebody's like, hey, I want to go do blah, blah, blah. You're like, all right, let's go. You're there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that you're like, oops, maybe I shouldn't have done that one. But you still appreciate the experience you get, even if it's not the best experience. You're
Yeah.
like, well, at least I did it. That's the
Yeah.
Aries. Like, well, at least I tried it.
It's like
Unlike you sitting over there.
yeah.
Because as we know, Virgo's, I mean, like that Virgo energy of the, like, not the opposition, but like Virgo when they are like very trying to plan. Because the Virgo's opposite of Pisces. I'm not trying to confuse everybody.
Yeah.
But for some reason, because you have all that that Leo energy, and then on top of that, you have Aries right here. You like, I feel like Virgo doesn't even exist in your chart, even though it's part of your richness. You
It's
see what I mean? It's like just
your vibe.
canceling it out.
Yeah. I think Virgo in my chart appears retrospectively to be like, that wasn't a good plan. We knew this. What were you thinking? Like it kind of feels like an older sister who's just
Yeah.
like, I can tell you, like
Yeah, it's like, look, I'm gonna try to help organize you here and get you to your goals of where you want to be, but all right, let me know when you're ready. That's
right.
kind of where Virgo's at. We're down here doing our thing. So Taurus happens to rule your 10th house. 10th house is the house of ambition and achievement. And you can see where it says MC right here, folks. That stands for medium coli, which means top of the sky. So this is the highest point of your little globe of the snapshot of your birthday, of your birth time, I should say. And it's also always in Placidius, always on the cusp of the 10th house. And down where you don't, it's not labeled on here, would be the IC or enum coli. And that is the very bottom of your chart. So before, when I was talking to Lauren about your roots and whatnot and where you've come from, that's kind of what that's indicating. Your roots are always on the house, on the fourth, the cusp of the fourth house. So in your past, you were very, again, secretive and seeking the truth. Now you're working it out. You're doing that hard work, getting that stuff done in order to find richness, right? So this is your only teammate you have for Virgo right now, all right? Because the Capricorn's dreamy, so it's not really helping too much. And Virgo is like, please, Taurus MC, help me.
Yep.
Just help me organize them a little bit better, please.
Right. Kill the cats. Yep.
Because as we know, you will work hard as long as you have your snacks. That's all that indicates. So if you want Lauren to reach the ultimate level of achievement, you need to have good snacks.
I need to be incentivized.
Yes, that's all it's saying. Basically, if you have a Taurus MC, you need snacks in order to be incentivized. There we go. We've just pared it down to that.
We cracked the code.
Now this is an interesting. This is the part I couldn't wait for. Now we're getting into the goods, folks. Okay, so a Gemini moon. Tell me about that.
It's never quite. You know what? Let me tell you something. Mars in Gemini I've been getting the business because it's in my 11th house, which is ruled by social media. I feel like every single thing I post that is not about astrology, I have people yelling at me in my comments. I normally really love my Gemini moon, but she is giving me the business right now. She's just
fierce.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and it happens to be in your social house.
Yep.
Right? So we all know Geminis are the storytellers, right, folks? They are the twins. They have two personalities, so they can do one thing and then the other thing. And but that's why they're so creative and interesting because, as I say, the difference. This is my favorite talk about how Gemini's and Capricorns are different, or Sagittarians are different because they're opposite of each other, but they're both about learning and intelligence and like wanting to get information. Gemini's, you teach them how, like, they're like, how does that gas stove work? And you show them the pilot light, you click it on, and you show them how, and they're like, oh, okay. And then the next day they're giving a TED talk on it. That's a Gemini energy, okay? Sagittarians, on the other hand, are like, I wonder what it's like to jump off a cliff. I'm gonna go do it.
Yep.
So, and then they can talk about it, not necessarily to try to teach other people, although they love that because they love education. But that's not their goal. They wanted to teach themselves, and if other people happen to learn from their experiences, cool. Versus Gemini is like, let me tell you what you're about to learn.
Yep.
So obviously, this is why you are an amazing writer as well for this kind of content, because it's in the 11th house, which is your social house, the kinds of groups you like to be a part of, that sort of thing. It's Aquarius's native house, right? The humanitarian, if you will. So you like to talk about how people can help other people. You like to socially communicate, which we all know. Obviously, it's part of your damn job. So, I mean, that's obviously here. This is why Lauren does what she does right here, pretty much. That's a big part of it, in my opinion. Besides all the Leo stuff, because we need some adoration. But actually, speaking of that, we're almost back to that. Now, I'm going to ask you, do you think your sun is in the 11th house or the 12th house?
This is one of those placements that I feel that 12th house pull on me. And every time I have my chart read, most people put it in the 12th.
I would agree with this because it is fairly late in its minutes.
Yeah, and
it's
I
like
also
51
have
minutes.
12th too. So I feel like, honestly, regardless of, I feel like that Chiron in Cancer anchors it there very concretely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. By the way, everybody, Chiron in Cancer for Lauren, which is literally on top of the sun almost. And as you know, having that wound, Chiron is a childhood wound, folks. It kind of looks like a key in your chart. And what it means is your childhood wounds, but also what you're healing from. So for Lauren, that could be like, she had this feeling of not really having a strong maternal figure. I'm not trying to dog your mom or anything. I don't know. Anyway, that's just your feeling of it, like wanting to have some sort of deep emotional capacity from somebody else, right? So you are really great now at doing that for other people.
Yep.
Not so good at doing it for yourself yet, but that's part of the healing.
Okay. No, okay.
All right. You said for filth. I don't know what you're saying, but I'm just trying to.
And I think it's one of those things too, like, just a little caveat, like, as I started teaching astrology, I also started going back to therapy, and it's interesting how, like, you can read the themes in your chart as you're just like working through your own thoughts, it's very uncanny sometimes. So yeah, that's a theme for me, like, especially the last couple of years, like, just giving myself to give other people, like, for real, and not just being like, okay, self, like, actually sitting with your uncomfortable feelings,
Yeah, I mean, it's late in your chart, so it probably wouldn't be until you were a little bit older. You're not that old yet. So you're still at the beginning of like working through that wound. It's just, you should keep helping other people how you are because it helps you heal, but you should also start to give some of yourself do you feel like your therapist writes off astrology or gives it importance? Listen, I will tell you that my therapist has no choice but to deal with astrology. Like, the first question I asked her was like, yeah, that's great. What's that name?
My therapist.
And guess what? Libra.
He's a man who didn't know his sign. And he went, but I'll go look that up for you. And he came back and he said, I think I'm a Taurus. And I was like, we're going to get along great. So he listens to me about it.
Yeah. If you want to do your chart, there's links in my bio to get your chart, or you can get a reading from one of us or any of those things, and we can help you figure out how to read it. So in your having your sun there in the 12th house, which it's the reason why I asked Lauren that is there's degrees that we don't talk about that much unless there's critical ones like 0 or 29, which you don't have any criticals in yours, by the way. Um, so it's right on the same degree. The sun is located on the same degree that the cusp of the 12th house starts. But there's these things called minutes. I don't know if I can put it back here. If I can change my background really quick, I can. Okay. So does it have it on there? No. Nope. Okay. Hang on. I thought I had the right one. It's the wrong one. Give me 1 second, folks. Hang out here with me. Here it is. This one? Nope, this one. So you can see right here how there is degrees and then there's minutes. That's what these are called. That's based on the orbits and the orbits of the planets. Okay, so like as an example, the moon is pretty fast, right? Because it's every 28 days it circles back around. Whereas something like Pluto, it takes years, 15 to 30 years. So those minutes, they're not actual minutes, but it says how deep you are into the orbit of that sign before it goes to the next sign. Okay? So, that being said, when we look at the sun, it's 50 minutes. So it is closer to the end of, that's why I said totally go to the 12th house.
Yeah.
Because you can see that, what is that? 16 degrees, 50 minutes, right? So if you look at this, you can see that the 12th house starts at 16 degrees of Cancer. So there you go. That's why. Yeah. I just wanted everybody to be able to see that because,
And people to know because different chart apps will switch which planet that house is in, like depending on. So it's good to know if it's sitting on the cusp so you can also like make that decision yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I have my Mars is on the cusp of my first and second house. It's totally my first house. I have no doubt in my mind. But it still comes across as the second one. I wouldn't have known that before.
Yeah.
I would have been like, okay, whatever you say. So, and I put this chart back up now because this has the aspects on it because we're going to get to that in a minute. So I might as well put that one up now. So we're still talking about the sun here, right on that cusp. And being on the 12th house is the house of intuition and dreams. Mm-hmm. So having Cancer rule that just gives you this really deep emotional capacity. Honestly, I feel like this is a psychic placement as well, having Cancer rule your 12th house and then having the sun in there, your ego's automatically attached to it. And then let's be real. Mercury's also here and Jupiter is right on top of your ascendant. So Jupiter is technically also in the 12th house and that's where I think it is for you. I get 12th house more than first.
Yeah,
that one.
It's another one that I'm like, it's on my ascendant and like,
yeah. It has to be like, even though it's on top of it, that's would indicate the first house. But for me, it's definitely in the 12th house. I just feel that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the stuff that you do in general, but folks, look at this. This is the 12th house of intuition and dreams, okay? You don't have to be an astrologer to hear what I'm about to tell you, all right? Ruled by Cancer, deep emotional capacity. There's also placements here in Leo, remember? Creative, pleasureful, adoration. This point right here, that's Mercury. That's the planet of communication. Oh, weird. And then this is Jupiter. That's another one. The social planets. Planet of expansion. Weird. I don't know why you're doing this career at all.
Coincidence for sure. Astrology is not just pure coincidence. This happened.
So in other words, having Mercury in Leo means that your communication uses your intuition and your dreams to creatively communicate. And probably you should be doing something work-wise that also creatively communicates. Because you have information that you need to get out to the world. The stuff that's in your 12th house, that's your connection to the other realm, if you will, and the information you're going to bring into this life. That's how I look at it. So, having Jupiter there, planet of expansion. This is like how your higher education, your philosophies, your experience, and it's in the 12th house of intuition and dreams. Hello. Right, folks?
Yep.
Like, it's not rocket science. Well, kind of. No, not really. But anyway, it's about the sky.
I would say anything Sky, it's rocket science as far as I'm concerned.
It counts, right? So I want to talk about aspects for a moment. Those are these lines that are going around, and I'm not going to like go through every single aspect on here, but I'm going to explain to everybody kind of what they mean and tell you how you can interpret your aspects. Okay? So we were talking before about conjunction. That's where they're blended because they're within 10 degrees of each other. Lauren has quite a few, but like we'll just talk about Mars and Venus as an example. If you take the blended energy of conjunction, so you say, oh, something's conjunct, that means it's blended. What kind of focus is it bringing? In this case, passion and love. So passion, Lauren's passion and love are blended together. See? So that's kind of how you would look at that. Now, sextile, these are these purple ones or 60 degrees apart, so 2 signs apart. Okay? If you look here, this is Pluto. Pluto's energy is transformation. And I like to refer to sextile as the bestie. Because it's like best friends. They're independent. They can work
Yeah.
without each other, but they like working together. So they have a nice relationship. Anyway, transformation is besties with rebellion, right? So your rebellion and how your rebellion is best friends with your transformation. You guys are getting it done. That's all. The next one would be this red one right here, which is called square. It's also 90 degrees. And this is the speed bump, if you will. Because they're kind of looking at each other. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a complete block here or anything like that. It's literally like you might find something more difficult in this area to achieve because of this little speed bump. In this case, we can talk about Lauren's, who's the rising sign, which is your filter, your public filter. And that is squaring up to transformation. So sometimes there's a little bit of a battle with her personal transformation and actually succeeding to everyone else, if that makes sense. Now the next one is trine. That's green. This green one right here. These are the same element because they're 120 degrees away from each other. Normally in the same element. Every once in a while they cannot be. But you can see here Cancer, water sign, Scorpio, water sign, right? So ego is flowing. We call this the flowing one because it's just they have that, since they're in the same element, they just kind of work together. They might have different ways of working together because
There's
they have
like a
different modes,
ending. Yeah.
right? But they have the like obviously water signs are going to flow together. Just one is like initiating it, and one is like we got to make sure we're turning right at the fork in the water up here. You know, so it's different things like that. But for ego, flowing well with transformation, that's nice. So as you transform, it will help feed your ego and help support your ego. Now, the last one and my favorite. These are just the 5 main aspects. There's tons of aspects, by the way, folks. But these are the 5 main ones. Opposition. These are the blue ones here. This is where it's opposite of each other, like Cancer and Capricorn and all the way around the charts, right? This is a push and pull. So, in my opinion, they're each other's like nuisance, but also the uplifter. They're kind of like the muse,
Yep.
if you will. They bother each other sometimes, but at the same time, then they want to help each other. So they learn from each other. Like, oh yeah, watch this.
Yep.
And then the other one does them. Oh yeah, watch this. So like sun, your ego is going back and forth with your dreams, which is in the 12th. Your sun's in the 12th house. That's cool. Sorry, that's a little side note, but so that just means that you're in. So how you're communicating your sense of routine is actually helping out your ego. That's cool. Sorry, a little side note there, folks, because I was like, oh. Now there are things called patterns. Lauren does have a T-square. I can tell you what that is in a minute. Patterns are 3 or more of the aspects, and they're in different kind of designs. Stelliums, you may have heard of. That's 3 or more in a single sign, like Leo up here, right? Leos can be 3 or more in the same house or sign, just so you all know. And that's that blended energy because it's conjunction. It's a group of conjunctions. That's what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
So then if you have a grand trine as an example, that means like you would have, if you had something in Pisces as well here, those 3 things would all blend and flow together, which would create this like triangle of talent and things like that. So that's what those means. The T-square is that opposition right here for Lauren right here. So these 2 are having that push and pull. That's Jupiter and Saturn, the 2 social planets. They're like, let's expand, now let's restrict, now let's expand, now let's restrict it. And you have a referee here who happens to be your MC. So your ambition's going to be the referee there that's going to say, today we're going to expand, folks.
Yep. Today
So
we're
that's just good.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's kind of it. Obviously, if you have any questions or you want to say anything, please by all means. But that's how I do it. That's
Yeah.
my
This
deal there.
so freaking fun. I've never had my chart read live, and you just explained everything so well. I'm like,
Thank you.
TBH, you got me good. Like, seriously,
Yes.
this is super fun. Gosh, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If
How was it? Yeah. Somebody just said, how was it being on the other side of the reading?
Oh my gosh. I'm like, if this is what you guys like always feel like, where you're like, oh my gosh, this is so real, but like, get out of me, like my head. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yes. Isn't it interesting when that happens? Like,
it
I
is.
get other readings every once in a while from other folks too, just because I want to help support everybody in our community that's doing these interesting, creative, things like that. But I just love it. I love it. I think it's so interesting. And we learn from each other.
That's the
Like,
thing. Is
how we speak is different, our thoughts on it are different, and it's so cool,
I
in my opinion.
like, I can't be like, I feel like everyone's kind of biased to their own chart. Like, I think everyone thinks they know what their bad placements are or what their best ones are. And like,
Mm-hmm.
get a really different perspective about yourself when someone goes, "Oh, look at this aspect," and you're like, "That thing, I hate that thing," and then you're like, "Well, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, maybe I need to."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a nice way to get a different look at yourself.
That's like one of your videos you were talking about. Yeah, I'm a Cancer, and I will be upset if you tell me something I don't want to. I was like, that's your Leo placements. Because let me tell you something. If you hurt a Leo's feelings, they will never
I'll forgive.
forget.
I'll forgive, but I'll in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. It's there. It will be drawn up whenever
Yep.
it needs to be drawn upon. So it's really cool. So
Uh,
well, thank you so much for doing this. It's awesome.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to do something else fun. Maybe we'll harass some of our fans at one point. Maybe we'll drag some fans. We'll do a joint live and do a
That would be fun, and just like read people's placements for filth.
yes. I'm
Love.
getting ready to do a series of how to trigger the signs.
Oh, okay. Get the Cancer and Leo done early so I can get being mad about it out of the way early.
Like I'm literally at the beginning going to be like, if you are the sign featured in this video, do not watch this. I am going to trigger you. I promise.
I made a series once where I was like, here's how you actually like here's how you piss off the sign, and people were like, that's not how you get me angry, and I'm like, it sounds like it might be. Like
Uh-huh. Exactly. Like I asked my girlfriend who's a Leo, Gemini rising. I said to her, I'm like, how do you get upset? Like, what triggers you? And she's like telling me these things, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Like somebody who doesn't laugh at my jokes, or I'm like, these are like surface area. And I'm like,
yeah,
can I ask you something? She's like, yeah. And we're poly, so her other partner also lives here with us, my metamor. And I'm like, just so you know, I don't really mean this, but what I'm about to say, I'm trying to trigger you. She's like,
right.
okay. I'm like, how can you date that person? They're so not up to your level. They
You
don't even know
know,
what they're talking about
I
half
do.
the time. And she was just like, her face, like she just, the color left her face
Yeah.
and then it returned with red.
Don't ever question a Leo's level of taste. Oh my
And loyalty and attack
god.
somebody that they love, you're done. You're
Yep. Because
done.
it's like the person might be mediocre, but now they have to square up for them. Now they're like feeling some kind of way about it. Like
It's freaking awesome. Just like the Metamor is a
oh,
Gemini, Libra rising, Leo
chart.
moon on that one. And I was talking to them about it, and I'm like, yeah, Gemini's, it's interrupting them. And she's like, oh, I'm getting mad just thinking about it.
I gotta
And
walk
I'm
this
like,
off.
yeah. If a Gemini's trying to tell you a story and you keep being, oh yeah, like what, and like interrupt them, they will go nuts. They can't
Yep.
handle it. They got to get it out.
Quiet.
You'll
She'll
see
just
them like start to.
yep. She'll be like, oh my.
I'm not telling you the cancer one yet. You're gonna have to wait.
Okay, well, I'll have to watch them, guys. Everyone in the comments. This is going to be a good series. I'm excited.
Yeah, I like it. I like doing that one. The color one was fun, like doing all the little charts or all
Yeah.
the signs. That was fun. A lot. That's a lot of pictures, folks. Okay. Holy cow.
If
Anyway,
you see what my camera roll looks like, it's a mess of screenshots and images and meme photos and
I'm
grocery lists.
as a Sag Rising, I'm a Virgo Midhaven, so you can imagine how my photo album looks as I go and as I do things. But then also having the degree in marketing and or graphic design and like that stuff.
Hmm.
I've been doing this for a while, so I can organize it. I at least am like, okay, you have to do it in this order.
Yep.
So that's an advantage for me, at least. But oh man, yeah. Thousands. We can't not have a giant iPhone because
Yeah.
there's so many pictures everywhere. Oh man. So anyway, well, thank you again so much, Lauren. I really appreciate you doing this, and thank you all here that came to watch and check this out. I hope you all enjoyed it. I think it's fun. It's kind of nerve wracking as an astrologer to read another astrologer because you could just come out and maybe be like, "You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about."
That would be so rude of me, though. Could you? I would that if anyone does that, I'm like, get a hobby.
Well, you know who? Do you know who Alyssa is? Divine Venus?
Yes, I love Alyssa.
So she was live on Instagram once, and I was on her. I was just chatting with her in the live thing, like everybody was or whatever. And I'm like, "Let me read your chart, like
Hmm.
right now. Just put me on your live." And I'm gonna. She's like, "I'm not gonna put some rando on my live." And I'm like, I'm not a rando, okay? I'm a celebrity astrologer." I'm like, "Come on." And she's like, "You know what? If the people in the chat say to let you do it, then I'll let you do it." And everybody's like, "Let her do it. Let her do it." It was great.
That's that
So then I got to read her live, but then she didn't save the live video. So there's no evidence that this ever happened at all. Um, but it was fun. It was fun to read her and her Libra. She drives
so
me crazy just because she's a Libra. But she's like, "Well, am I flirting with you now?" I'm like, "You're a Libra. You're flirting with
it's like
everybody all the time."
it's what Libras do. It's why we love you.
But then I feel like I insulted her a little bit at the end because I was like, if you all want to sell a couple of your kids and get a reading from Alyssa, you should take a look at that. She's like, "What are you trying to say? My readings are expensive." I'm like, "Hey, I hope to be able to charge that for reading someday." She was like, okay. So I might have upset her a little bit, but I can't help it. I have a lot of sad placements.
Speaking your truth.
Yep, I can't. So, all right, everybody, take care. Have a good weekend. It's Friday.
Enjoy the weekend, guys.
All right, take care, everybody. I love you all. Please go make sure you're following and supporting Lauren. And until next time, cheers, everybody.
You guys.
Bye. Bye.